welcome to the family here on Purple Mafia. I am your host, Palladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. Purple Mafia is available on all of your favorite podcasting apps. I thank each and every one of you once and always for downloading and listening to this show. It is a great pleasure to be back on board with you once again today for our annual Granddaddy of them all, State of the Vikings 2025. Well, those of you that have been around for many, many years, God bless you. I appreciate every one of you. Any newcomers, welcome aboard and say hello to me on any of the social media conglomerates. All the links will be in the show description. But Purple Mafia Show is probably the easiest one to find, except on Facebook, since that got messed up a couple years ago. It's just simply Purple Mafia Show on Instagram, Purple Mafia Show on X or Twitter, right there. So those two you can get. And TikTok is Palladino.live. Palladino.live. That's where all my podcasts go on TikTok. Not that I'm going to be dancing in front of any cameras. I'm not going to be doing that for nobody ever, unless we win a championship or something. But I still probably won't really dance. I'll just be happy. Other than that, well, you know the routine. First segment, those of you that are that have been around forever, first segment is putting a bow on the previous season. That'd be the 2024 Minnesota Vikings. From start to finish, I'm not going to go into every single stinking detail there is, but details off and on throughout the season and significant moments and this and that. And then we wrap up this segment with the MVP, the 2024 Minnesota Vikings MVP, according to myself, and the listeners as well in the polls. The biggest disappointment and the biggest surprise for 2024 as well. It's always three different players. Maybe it might be the same player for some of them. Maybe, but probably not, I guess. Some years it is. It was going to be at one point, but that changed. You can maybe guess what took place there. Which player could have been both, but wound up giving that up in the last two games. Yeah, you can guess pretty easily. That's a spoiler alert right there, unfortunately. So, yeah, the second segment will be looking at the future, which is very exciting, especially if the probability of J.J. McCarthy taking over as the Minnesota Vikings quarterback is a reality coming forward. That'll be segment number 2, looking at the draft, free agency, and the draft free agency first, the draft a bit. It is not a draft preview, but it's talking about the draft, and maybe we'll do a little simulator for fun, looking at mock drafts and such. But usually the simulator is for the actual draft preview, which is 2 shows away. Segment number 3 is fan interaction. That might be, unfortunately, a bit quiet. Years ago, we used to have some pretty talkative, pretty busy fan interactions in this show, this annual show, but lately not so much, thanks to the Facebook being destroyed a couple of years ago and having to be rebuilt from the ground level. Not fun. You don't want that to happen to your Facebook page for your podcast, especially if it's like a decade-plus old show like this one, dating back to 2008. It's pretty old. It's a pretty old show, but hopefully in a positive way you look at it, not a negative. Man, it's an old show, but I'm still love doing it. I still love doing it anyway. The Vikings had 3 preseason games instead of 4, like back in the past. They won all 3 of them, which is unusual. It's fun and everything. The Vikings beat the Las Vegas Raiders. Will that be the new home for Sam Darnold? We'll see. 24-23, Cleveland. The Vikings hosted the Cleveland. We were hosting the Las Vegas Raiders, and we got to see J.J. McCarthy. So this one's actually kind of significant. It was a lot of fun to watch. You got to see number 9 out there with that sunglass look. Looks kind of like McMahon, Jim McMahon years ago, but a much more athletic and interesting looking quarterback than an aged Jim McMahon, even though he did win a Super Bowl with the Bears. McCarthy completed 11 of 17 attempts, 2 touchdowns. He did throw an interception, like a rookie mistake, kind of forcing a play, but looked damn good doing it. That's a fact. Kenny Nwangwu, I don't know, he was actually healthy, but you won't be seeing him a whole lot more, unfortunately. But very exciting seeing J.J. McCarthy out there. Jaron Hall would have one of his final moments with the Vikings. But, yeah, it was so exciting. All of us were so excited, so optimistic. And then the next day or two, it's like, he has some pain in his knee. Well, they're going to look at it. Wonder what's going on. Yep, it's a meniscus. Yep, it's a meniscus. But then they're going to look at it some more. How severe is it? Is it going to be a quick, But then again, with a guy like that, at that age, his rookie year in the NFL, do you really want to risk just kind of like, the minor thing, which could end up leading to arthritis and a shorter football career, or go for the full surgery and probably say either goodbye for the season or most of the season? Unfortunately, it was goodbye for the whole year, which did seem a bit long, but that's fine. And have a fully recovered J.J. McCarthy going forward after that. I suppose that's how it is. But it's the old, why can't we have nice things? I mean, there were even possibilities of J.J. McCarthy becoming the starter right away or later on during the season, especially when Sam Darnold would sputter against teams like Jacksonville and such later in the season. Detroit, Jacksonville, teams like that, the Rams. Boy, does that sound familiar. Yeah, it was a tough stretch from Sam Darnold in the midpoint of the season, where it looked like the glass slipper might be disappearing a bit. Like, what happened to the glass slipper's still around, but the everything turned into a pumpkin, unfortunately. It looked like it was heading that way, but thankfully, spoiler alert, things would get better. But no, McCarthy would not be taking over because he'd be out for the season. So that's the only reason I talked about that. But also, how cool was it that I was still? That's what's always fun about the first preseason game is I'm still able to swim in the local swimming pool, like the public pool or in the lake and all that, and then keeping up with the game. It is so fun. It is so cool. I believe I even had a fire outside that afternoon while watching the game and watching McCarthy kicking some butt. I mean, that was fun. But then you get that crappy news later that week, later into the week. And it's just like, damn it, anyway. And then, well, that's the end of McCarthy. But now we get to start anew with him. We get to see Sam Darnold open up against the New York Giants. He looked adequate in the small, tiny sample size you saw him in the preseason. Just kind of adequate. He'll be okay. We'll see what happens. He looks like, it's like a placeholder. Might end up being an above-average quarterback. We'll see. And then, well, against the Giants, very promising. Positive vibes. And obviously, coming into the year, which I rudely didn't mention, I meant to open the show with this, but I didn't. But I didn't because I got so excited to jump into the preseason. Is vibes coming into the season were horrifying. Remember the around July 5th, like the day after July 4th, the absolute tragedy. Seeing Kyrie Jackson, not seeing it, but hearing about Kyrie Jackson dying and as a passenger in a car accident where people were just probably messing around a bit, driving a little too fast, and I don't know, one of the other people in the other car was probably lubed up or whatever the word is, drinking too much. Yeah, real smart. 3 a.m, and they were racing around, and then bad things happened, and Kyrie Jackson and all of his friends in that car ended up passing away. The other person in the other car didn't even get a scratch, from what they say. Maybe shook up a bit, I'm sure, and yeah, it was absolutely devastating. So you have that awful vibe going into the start of the season, seeing a guy never even get to play a single down in the NFL after being such an amazing story, being drafted by the Vikings after going from a guy who had given up and was just kind of, moving on with his life as a regular adult, or as a young person, and then joined into college football, and then later on looked like, yeah, he's a real NFL prospect after all. Got drafted by the Vikings. Looked like he was going to be one heck of a cornerback for the Vikings going forward. And then that happens. And boy, oh boy, just on the football side alone, boy, you really need cornerbacks. And there's a reason why he was drafted in the first place. But an amazing story, and then tragedy to see it all end just like that. Awful, awful, and sad. We'll give another moment of silence for Kyrie Jackson. Truly one of the saddest endings to what looked like a wonderful story. Terrible. And then Mekhi Blackmon, a very promising rookie the year before. Looked like a nice draft pick by Kwesi. ACL. It was like the first practice. Like, seriously? Really? I mean, what the heck? How bad is this season going to be? Like, are we just going to be like 6-11 or something? I mean, we're going to be lucky to even be sniffing at like 500 now. I mean, geez. So after that awful vibe coming in with somebody dying, and then Mekhi Blackmon, the first practice, ACL. It's like, what the heck? So that was extremely frightening. And then more injuries started piling up to other players. Was it like Shaq Griffin was kind of banged up, this and that? was like really irritating. Like one guy after another going down with injuries. And then you had you had somebody emerge nicely in Brian Murphy as the season progressed. But usually when you see vibes like that going into the season, like this is going to be a really rough one. It's going to be a bad year. It just didn't work out. Simply, simple as that. And then you go into the New York Giants game in the regular season, and Sam Darnold looks pretty damn good. And the Vikings beat up on Daniel Jones. He attempted 42 passes because the Giants were behind after taking a 3-0 lead. The Giants were behind the rest of the way, as the Vikings would continue to have better and better vibes throughout the game. That was the whole episode. There was positive vibes. Aaron Jones looked real good, 95 yards on the ground, making everything look easy. Unfortunately, that'd be about as good as Jones would look. Darnold did throw an interception, which he's wont to do at times, but didn't throw a whole lot this year. Extremely accurate, extremely solid throughout the day, and that was a great way to start the season. Truly was. Jalen Naylor would get a touchdown on one catch. Good vibes all around. Daniel Jones, they really shut him down. The Vikings defense got on him. And Andrew Van Ginkel, who was an MVP candidate for the year, had a pick six, which he is, again, also wanted. Or Will Reichert, the kicker, looks freaking great. This is awesome. Of course, those are just extra points, but he looked really good in the preseason and as the season would continue. I'm going to try not to prolong this too much, but that's kind of how the season started. And then the Vikings then beat the Giants the next week. It's like, the Giants. The 49ers the next week. In a game, it looked like the Vikings had built a big lead. You feel so positive. Then things would get kind of scary. But then Sam Darnold would be so clutch and get the job done again. Put the Vikings in good position to win the football game. And the Vikings defense held strong as well. Strong enough to wrap things up. And man, that felt good. Sam Darnold again also hitting Jalen Naylor. A couple of touchdowns early in the year. Jalen Naylor, an early candidate for the surprise of the year. Unfortunately, that magic wand would run out of magic points at times. Ty Chandler also saw significant action because Aaron Jones' reality set in right away, losing a fumble and being hurt and being benched a bit. And Ty Chandler would wind up with 82 yards, which would be about as good as you'd see him all year. Jefferson with 133 yards and only 4 catches looked freaking awesome after being oft injured the year before. Darnold would have that magical interception, that little grape jelly stain, but along the way things would look great. Pat Jones would get multiple sacks. Again, he was a great start to the season and a great story most of the year as well. Pat Jones, a absolute candidate for the biggest surprise of the season. So Vikings would have kind of a back and forth this game with the 49ers, but would survive it. Defending NFC champions, then the Vikings would blow the Houston Texans right out of the water. A 2-0 Houston Texans team. All kinds of positivity looking in this one. And this is before Stephon Diggs would have an ACL and the other guy as well. Was it Tank Dell? Would have a horrendous injury. You feel terrible for that guy. And then this guy named Cam Akers, familiar face. There he is, receiving a touchdown against the Vikings. Little do we know, just a couple of weeks later, we would trade for him again for the second year in a row. Cam Akers would come back to the Vikings, and that was nice. But it was kind of cool seeing him score, and it was the only touchdown in the game. Sam Darnold would throw 4 TDs against a pretty good Houston defense, and the Vikings just blew him right out. The Vikings defense also extremely strong against C.J. Stroud, forcing him into multiple interceptions, and that felt absolutely great. There was no pick six in this one, but still an awesome moment to say the least. Will Reichert even made a 58-yarder along the way. That was awesome. 34-7, Vikings crush the Houston Texans. This was on September 22nd. Then the Vikings, and believe it or not, I was at the lake and in the water keeping up with this game as the Vikings would build a 28-0 lead. This is the end of September, folks, and it was so warm because it was the greatest fall of all time in these parts. If you happen to be from the Twin Cities or Iowa, I believe also you experienced it, because I know the majority of listeners in this show is Iowa. You are the winners, and I appreciate you guys so much. Vikings would blow a 28-0 lead as things would unravel a bit at the very end of the first half. The Vikings had built a 28-0 lead. Jordan Addison coming in the game for the first time, recovering from injury, would have a 1 yard, would run into the end zone for a touchdown, but also receive one as well. Great game for Jordan Addison, to say the least. A couple of touchdowns, one rushing and one 29-yard reception to open up his season. First play of the season for Jordan Addison was a touchdown. Very positive vibes, opening things out. But then, Jordan Love was struggled through a bunch of interceptions, but then would be insanely good in the second half. And the Vikings offense would sputter in the second half, watching the Packers evaporate a Vikings 28-0 lead right before our eyes. It was horrifying. If Will Reichert, let's see, if Darnold didn't drive the Vikings down the field enough that Will Reichert would get a 33-yarder, you were praying that Darnold would get the Vikings in the end zone, but it didn't happen. The Vikings offense would sputter enough that we'd have to settle for a field goal in the red zone once again. 33-yard kick to make it 31-22, but still the Packers would be in a striking distance, whether we like it or not. Packers then would score after that to make it 31-29. The Vikings thankfully still maintained the lead. Believe it or not, as the Vikings, I feel like the Vikings were going to find a way to blow this one. But luckily, Darnold was clutch enough to put the Vikings in position to wrap things up and escape utter disaster. A 28-point lead evaporating before your eyes in Green Bay, Wisconsin, of all places, would have been absolutely disgusting. And man, it would have been terrifying. Darnold lost a fumble. He also threw an interception. But I believe, trying to remember now, yeah, there was an absolutely frustrating, heartbreaking fumble. It was Jalen Naylor on a kick return very late at the end of the half, and that's when the Packers' momentum happened. Naylor fumbles the ball with less than a minute remaining before halftime, and the Packers would score immediately right after that, 28-7. It's like, well, hopefully that's just a quick little thing, but no, the Packers would have all the momentum, and it was horrifying, to say the least. Thankfully, the Vikings escaped that one and go to 4-0. Maybe too many details here, but, well, looks like we're not that long into this show yet. New York Jets game, kind of an ugly one. Aaron Rodgers, what he is what he is. At least he got to play this year, but he threw tons of interceptions. Andrew Van Ginkel would get another pick six, a 63-yard return to the end zone to make it 10-0 Minnesota. Will Reichert would hit a lot of clutch kicks, including a 54-yarder, a 53-yarder, a 41-yarder, and this show was called Big Leg Bill. This was also in Britain, my friends, and yes, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, if I do say so myself. 5-0 victory for the Minnesota Vikings. Not too dodgy, but dodgy enough, as Donald was dodgy a little bit in this one. No touchdowns thrown, but he did throw an interception. He was also hurt. Nick Mullins would complete a 24-yard pass in Sam Donald's stead, as Aaron Rodgers would also be very dodgy in this one, with 3 interceptions thrown against the Minnesota Vikings. Like I said, one of them was a pick six. Chap, governor, sorry. Yeah, very dodgy to say the least. A sticky wicket for the Vikings in this one. It was more of a sticky wicket than a lot of us thought it would be. A sticky wicket, for your information, is a tough situation, or like being in a pickle, as you might say here in the U.S. That's the Britain's version of it. It is called a sticky wicket, my friend. Breece Hall did a whole lot of nothing. Garrett Wilson had some moments, 13 catches. But yeah, it was a meh game. Let's just keep moving. I don't want to babble too much about that one. Things would get a bit dodgy as we'd head into the bye week. Vikings would lose both games. 5-0 win, or 5-0 record. Vikings 5-0. Detroit were 4-1. The Vikings were in first place because Detroit would lose pretty early in the season to the Tampa Bay Bucks, who Detroit knocked out in the first round for their first playoff win in 33 years the year before, 32 years the year before, as they had won a playoff game back in 91. To get to the NFC title game, they had the bye, only to get their butts kicked by the Washington Redskins. Funny, Washington Redskins, huh? Interesting. Yeah, anyhow, this was a back-and-forth battle. The Vikings would take a 10-0 lead. You'd feel good about ourselves. Then we'd see it evaporate, disappear completely, 21-10. Vikings would fight back, but as Minnesota fans know, despite the fact the Vikings did take a 29-28 lead, it wouldn't be enough, and the Vikings would come up just short. Classic Minnesota ending to the story, coming up just short. 31-29, a well-fought game, but Detroit would regain possession. They would regain the NFC North lead with the tiebreaker and the victory. And unfortunately, and I mean very unfortunately, this was in U.S. Bank Stadium. Darnold would throw an interception. He wasn't that bad in this game. He was pretty good. Despite the interception, his quarterback rating was still in triple-digit land, 103.6. A lot of guys played well in this game, but just not good enough. And Jahmyr Gibbs just kind of went right through that Vikings, just went right up the gap and ran right through us. 45-yarder and all that good stuff. Couple of touchdowns there. he would also have 4 catches for 44 yards, pardon me, but Jahmyr Gibbs made it look fairly easy at times, and Jared Goff was sharp as a tack. 22 completions off of 25 attempts. That's insane. 2 touchdowns thrown. Big game that did not end up going the Vikings' way, and it was unfortunately a turning point for the season, as Detroit would remain in first place the rest of the season, whether we liked it or not. This was at the start of October, if I remember correctly, or was our first game in October. No. New York Jets was, and then you have the bye week, so then all of a sudden it was from early October to late October on the 20th. Then you have a Thursday night game with the Rams. Just didn't go well. Vikings would take the early lead, but the Rams would come roaring back. But the Vikings would take a 14-7 lead, and after that, it was a bit of a back and forth seesaw battle. But as the game progressed, the Rams just kind of finished off the Minnesota Vikings. Unfortunately, Matthew Stafford will not come to the Minnesota Vikings, as the news is that Matthew Stafford has come to a a restructuring contract with the Los Angeles Rams. Matthew Stafford will not go to the Raiders, as was rumored, with Tom Brady, or to the Minnesota Vikings or the New York Giants. So Matthew Stafford remains with the Rams. Sam Darnold's potential good landing spot for Sam Darnold will not be the Rams, at least at this moment. It could be Tom Brady's Raiders. We'll see. Sam Darnold was pretty sharp in this one, a quarterback rating of 128.8, but Stafford would go from a guy who'd struggled mightily. He had as many interceptions as touchdowns, I believe, coming into this one, and he threw four touchdowns in this one, much sharper, as he's had many great games against the Vikings historically. Jefferson would have 8 catches for 115, but the Vikings, unfortunately, would come up short once again. Great game by Darnold, but the defense kind of let us down back-to-back weeks because a guy by the name of Blake Cashman was out versus Detroit and the Los Angeles Rams. It felt like the Vikings couldn't tackle for our lives. The run game was extremely frustrating to deal with, and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp also returned magically this week. It looked like the Rams were going to be terrible. What were they, 1-3, 1-4? Well, they were 1-4 a couple of weeks ago, or the week before, and then this one they were 1-4 2 weeks before. Pardon me. And then all of a sudden now this would be their second win in a row. Pardon me. They were 1-4 2 weeks before. Sorry, just 2 weeks or a week before, and now this gets them almost to 500. And little did we know just how tough the Rams would be as the season progressed, and they would be our opponent, and it would not be a pretty day. Wouldn't be like those NFC title games back in the day, would it? No sacks by the Vikings, no pressure on Stafford, or at least not enough, and there was terrible tackling throughout this game, and extremely frustrating. Vikings would remain undefeated the rest of the regular season until the season finale. Vikings would defeat the Colts in a meh game, 21-13. The Jacksonville one was as ugly as heck. A lot of people saw this becoming a serious situation. But also what was serious about the Los Angeles game was that Christian Darrisaw would go out with a pretty severe knee injury, ACL, MCL, as a Rams defender. The Rams tackle or end, whatever, would go into him, would kind of fall into him from behind, and Darrisaw would go down in a heap and be out for the season. It's like, oh no, not Christian Darrisaw. Please, not Christian Darrisaw. So we go from a 5-0 team to possibly see you next year. Vikings then make what felt like a miraculous trade to get Cam Robinson, who ended up being pretty respectable, from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So go up against his team just 2 weeks later. Vikings again a win, 21-13, a meh performance versus a meh team in Indianapolis. Joe Flacco would have some moments, but generally speaking was pretty awful as the game progressed. Darnold would be meh a bit. 3 touchdowns, he looked good, but then multiple interceptions kept this a closer game than it probably should have been. Justin Jefferson absolutely amazing with 137 yards and 7 catches. But not the best day. Jonathan Bernard would add a couple of sacks. But you got to see Cam Robinson for the first time, and he was solid. He held his own nicely. And he would hold his own nicely for a little while until all of a sudden he started running into penalties, hold after hold, as the season progressed. Jacksonville Jaguars, a terrible game for the Vikings in Everbank Stadium. They'd keep the Jaguars to only 7 points. The Vikings defense absolutely got the job done here. Certainly wasn't going to be an offensive player that was going to get the Fran Tarkenton Award. Van Ginkel would get a sack. Clark Cashman returning a week before would get a sack. Ivan Pace Jr. would add one. And Cam Robinson would hold his own nicely. Darnold would suck so bad we were wondering, okay, if J.J. McCarthy was healthy, this is when J.J. McCarthy takes over and becomes the starting quarterback for the Vikings. Mac Jones was below average, in fact, arguably even worse on the other end. And the Jacksonville offense could do basically nothing against a pretty good Vikings defense. Cam Akers would get 38 yards on the ground, but it took 13 rushes to get there, unfortunately. Aaron Jones, okay, solid, 88 yards along the way. And Hockenson returning a few weeks earlier, of course. Yeah, this was one of his best games of the season, 72 yards. But unfortunately, generally speaking, Hockenson wouldn't get in the end zone forever. Couldn't get a whole lot of separation. Has obviously come back from the injury, and unfortunately that does put him as one of the disappointment candidates for the season. Can't say it was a great year for Hockenson because not only coming back from an injury, but wasn't catching the ball a whole lot. He would have a lot of drops during the course of this year. Tennessee game, Darnold would recover nicely. As no, you're not sitting me down. Definitely a solid game, and a lot of fans listened to this game. A couple of touchdowns, 246 as we head into November 17th into Thanksgiving week eventually. The Vikings would not have a Thanksgiving game there moving forward. Chicago Bears, this was crazy. This was scary. Vikings almost blew this one. Vikings almost blew this one. Almost on another game evaporate before our eyes. So Vikings would build up a pretty solid lead late in the third quarter. 24-10, you're feeling good. I'm listening to it closely, keeping up with it and watching it, but listening as well while trying to work outside because me and my brother and my nephews were working our butts off to get things going. I think my nephews weren't there for this one, actually. They were busy. But yeah, we were working our butts off. Darnold would have a great game and would be clutch down the stretch, thankfully. Caleb Williams would have one of his best games as a Bear so far coming into his career as a rookie. 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. It did not lose the ball. So great performance by Caleb Williams as our Vikings defense made him look like one of the best players in the NFL. Vikings would see their lead evaporate, but thankfully again, Vikings would hang on and win the game. Cairo Santos would make a 48-yarder, but John Parker Romo was clutch in this one. Definitely a candidate for the player of the game here. 40-yarder, 26-yarder, and a 29-yarder at the very end as the Vikings would survive, giving up that lead and having to go to OT, thinking we're going to lose this thing. But the Vikings defense would hold strong. It was absolutely great. As the Bears would get the ball, obviously they'd win the toss. Vikings defense said, screw you, you're not going anywhere, take a seat. And then John Parker Romo, and then Darnold and the Vikings marched down that field, and Romo would hit a 29-yarder from the Bears' 11-yard line. Vikings escape a scary game. Aaron Jones had yet another fumble in this one, which was extremely irritating, despite a pretty good performance. Almost 5 yards a carry, 106 yards. But man, that was a terrifying game in the Windy City. Could have been a miracle in the Windy City. The Vikings would lose the ball in a late in the fourth quarter on an onside kick. Like, how do you manage to bleep that up? I mean, onside kicks are hard to do nowadays. The Vikings found a way, but still survived that game. I don't know how. Kept the win streak alive. December would come, and Vikings would beat the Arizona Cardinals by the skin of their teeth, 22-23. I don't know what the heck this was. Kyler Murray wasn't even good in the game. You could count on Kyler Murray to make mistakes, and he did. A couple of interceptions, even though 45 attempts. He had some moments, but Darnold ended up being the better quarterback in this one, and Romo would miss one kick, but definitely was good along the way. As you saw, Will Reichert get injured after he was missing some kicks a few weeks earlier, and that's why Romo would enter this one. Of course, he was the guy competing against Will Reichert in the preseason. Atlanta Falcons, yep, Kirk Cousins coming to town. And Kirk Cousins would drive those Falcons down the field. They'd win the toss. Actually, yeah. And he'd drive those Falcons down the field in a pretty impressive job there, but did not throw a touchdown, though did high enough to Tyler Aguilar to get in the end zone. Falcons would eat the clock a bit and make it 7-0 as Kirk Cousins looked pretty good. But then Sam Darnold said, no, this is my vibe here, not yours. And Darnold would have the game of his life, a perfect quarterback rating, or even above that. No, slightly below, I don't know how. 157.9 instead of 158.3, I think it is, or 59.3. I forget what the actual number is. Kirk Cousins would throw a couple of interceptions and would struggle and be benched actually after this game, if you can believe it. Or Darnold at this point looked like a sure Pro Bowler, and maybe we might end up signing him long term. But no, you still have J.J. McCarthy. It's going to be an interesting conversation in the offseason, right? But, yeah, Darnold would have the game of his life. I mean, and there was a lot of motivation in this one for him, no doubt. And Jordan Addison was absolutely insane. 8 catches, 133 yards, 3 touchdowns. Both Jordan Addison and Sam Darnold making each other look better. Same with Justin Jefferson with 7 catches and 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. Absolutely amazing performance by both of the receivers and, of course, Sam Darnold. It was an epic, epic game to watch, and the Vikings would blow the Falcons right out of there. In a rare blowout win for the Vikings, who now became 11-2 with a 42-21 victory, doubling up the Falcons and putting them their playoff hopes more in doubt than before, dropping them to 6-7. Vikings versus Bears again. This one was in U.S. Bank Stadium. Totally different vibe than the previous one. The Vikings would win comfortably 30-12. Darnold wasn't even special in this one at all. Caleb Williams was meh at best, but he did throw a touchdown pass. Aaron Jones would get in the end zone. Cam Akers would get in the end zone. Jefferson would catch one. But nobody really stood out spectacularly in this one statistically. Will Reichard, though, did make all 3 of his kicks. Vikings have win fairly comfortably over the Bears as the season would continue to move forward. The Vikings would go all the way up to an incredible 12-2 record. Man. And then you had an incredibly close game versus Seattle as we head into Christmas week. 27-24. Vikings would go up to 13-2. Absolutely nuts. 3 touchdown passes. Sorry for clearing my throat every 10 seconds. 3 touchdown passes for Darnold. Another great performance. Geno Smith would have his moments, but then would throw the interception late, and it would cost the Seattle Seahawks dearly. As Geno Smith is one of those kind of guys. Like, you get him to throw the ball enough, eventually the mistake's going to come. Like, he's not a superstar. He's not. The mistake is going to come, and it did. And the Vikings were able to survive. Another insane game by Justin Jefferson. 10 catches, 144 yards with 2 TDs. Jordan Addison would add 1 touchdown on only 35 yards, despite 5 catches. He'd be a bit of a possession receiver. In this one, Van Ginkel would add a couple of sacks. Overall, strong season for Van Ginkel. And again, an MVP candidate for this year. Sorry, everything is messing up. Vikings would survive another insanely close game with the Green Bay Packers to get to 14-2. Whereas back in the day, a 14-2 season was like you're absolutely a Super Bowl contender. You're like the 49ers in the late 80s, early 90s. You're like whoever. New England Patriots, when they were winning Super Bowls, you're like all the greats. 14-2. Absolutely a Super Bowl contender. Packers have dropped to 11-5, which is still a competitive division, division championship or wild card type team. Possibly, depending on what type of division you're in. But Darnold, again, another strong performance. 3 touchdown passes, another great performance for him, generally speaking. Vikings would keep Love in check. A close game, though, as the Vikings almost blew it again. 27-10 lead. Vikings defense almost coughed this one up, along with the fact the Vikings would make some mistakes as well. But Cam Akers would have a huge touchdown again. Down the stretch, would make a catch and get into the end zone. Sorry, I have a frog in my throat. I apologize. But, yeah, Cam Akers getting into the end zone after, again, he also made a shoestring catch down the stretch to help the Vikings escape this one. Unfortunately, though, this was the end of all the magic. This was it. Isn't that the saddest part? Once the Vikings got to 14-2, you're feeling really good. Like, oh, my God, could this be the year? Could this be the year? Even though we're messing around and almost losing to teams, but we're finding ways to win. We're getting the job done. Blake Cashner with a sack and a half. Just an amazing season for him. He's arguably an MVP candidate, though he might not be on the list, unfortunately, as we go. I mean, I don't have room for everybody, right? That type of thing. Don't have room for everybody that deserves it necessarily. But the Vikings would have, a close, frustrating finish after building a 27-10 lead, but thankfully would escape. That big shoestring catch by Cam Akers would be a huge difference maker and put the Vikings in position to go 14-2. Still not going to win the division necessarily, but they might. Detroit, on the other side of things, lost a game recently, and the Vikings would have an opportunity to possibly win the division, but you got to go to Detroit to do it. It was the biggest regular season game, most anticipated regular season game in many years, where it's going to be the number one seed on the line. The winner gets the number one seed in the NFC. The loser ends up having to go on the road for the fifth seed, and that sucks. I mean, what a difference, what a gap. All the momentum in the world could be on the side of the winner, and no momentum whatsoever could be on the side of the loser. Sam Darnold looked nervous as a Mickey frickin' whatever. You could see it. You could just see it. Coaches were trying to calm him down a bit on the sidelines. He looked like a guy who was just, I don't know, very focused, but a very nervous focus. Like, not sure what to think here about this, but maybe everything's going to be fine. Who wouldn't be nervous going in a game like this? But then you saw guys being wide open and the ball being overthrown. You saw the ball hitting the ground before players and going over. He looked like he looked like a lot closer to Josh Freeman out there. I think I saw Freddie Freeman in a home run in a preseason baseball game. I can't stand the Dodgers. Boo. But, yeah, it is what it is, right? Well, he looked like Josh Freeman, who was overthrowing and underthrowing everybody, mostly in Josh Freeman's case years ago against the Giants, was overthrowing everybody. Darnold was mostly overthrowing people, but was underthrowing as well. He struggled and struggled and struggled and struggled. He looked worse than I've ever seen him play, pretty much. Except he didn't throw any interceptions, but his passes were so inaccurate. How could they be intercepted? I mean, they were just awful. They were like, what? I mean, Justin Jefferson was wide open. He would have had a touchdown in his sleep. And Sam Darnold overthrew him by about 3 or 4 or 5 yards, something like that. Wasn't even close. Like, forget about it. Like, how do you miss that badly? Well, he did. He missed that badly by being nervous as bleep going into a game that felt like a regular season Super Bowl. Jared Goff was terrible in the game as well. So it's like, oh, maybe the Vikings still have a chance. Yeah, sure we do. Well, the Vikings were kind of hanging in there. We were making some field goals. And Will Reichard made 3 kicks, and it was 10-9. It was Jahmyr Gibbs would rush up the middle pretty early as the Vikings defense looked like dog crap at the end of the day. The Vikings defense would look like dog crap at times in this one, but I think the Vikings offense was much more the problem than the Vikings defense, because Detroit is an offense that can score 40. The fact the Vikings kept Detroit to 31 is a testament to the Vikings defense much more than how awful the Vikings offense truly was. But luckily there weren't turnovers really in this game. In fact, there wasn't a single turnover by a Viking player on the offensive side. There was no fumbles, there was no interceptions. Just Darnold wasn't, I don't know, he wasn't mentally ready for the game. I'm sure he was prepared and all that on paper. I'm sure he was prepared, but mentally, his mental focus just, he was too nervous. He was thinking about it too much. He was thinking too much. He was terrified. And also Jahmyr Gibbs would run up the middle and kick the Vikings' ass once again, just like earlier in the year. And in fact, you could argue this one was much worse, as he looked more like Alvin Kamara against the Minnesota Vikings on Christmas Day years ago. Merry Christmas. What was it, 5 touchdowns for one player? It was ridiculous. Or was it 6? It was the stupidest thing you ever saw. And Alvin Kamara is not the nicest guy in the world. In fact, he was rubbing it in our face the whole game. It was pretty obnoxious. Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't know what to think, but whatever he is, he is. 3 touchdowns on the ground and 1 receiving as well, despite the fact that Jared Goff was almost as bad as Sam Darnold. Jared Goff, as good as he is, he's another one where he turns into a pumpkin in the playoffs, as we found out not too long after this. In fact, it was the next playoff game, wasn't it? Isn't that the darndest thing? But we'll get back to that in a second. Yeah, Jared Goff was pretty lousy. Like, if the Vikings offense had somewhat of a pulse, if Sam Darnold had somewhat of a pulse of, like, normalcy coming into this game, the Vikings probably would have won. Probably. I think so. Like, the fact the Vikings offense couldn't do anything, that certainly was a boost to the Detroit offense, as awful as Jared Goff was. And as much as Jahmyr Gibbs kicked our butts, still could have been enough. Possibly if the Vikings offense showed up to play, more time of possession. Well, Sam Darnold was more focused. Sam Darnold took the cake for a worst performance for anybody basically all year in a single game, outside of throwing an interception in the game, because he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn because he was so damn nervous. He couldn't calm down. He was just, I'm the quarterback. We got this. We can do this, guys. I think we can do this. No, no, you can't. Not when you play like that. He was missing and missing and missing, despite his accuracy and his clutch ability throughout the season. The Vikings would be blown out in Detroit, Michigan, 31-9. There was pretty much no doubt in this one. 15-2 Detroit Lions, number 1 seed. Vikings dropped to number 5 and have to play the stupid frickin' Rams, who kicked our butts earlier in the season, particularly late in that game. But that postseason game was much worse than the regular season one. What was it, 30-20, right? Hoo-wee. The Detroit team that only won 10 games all year because they started off 1-4, and they basically, the vibes were awful throughout this whole thing. 7-0, 10-0. Darnold was as bad as he was versus Detroit. Vikings would get in there finally, 10-3, 17-3, 24-3, 27-3. Oh, we scored a touchdown. T.J. Hockenson finally scored his first touchdown of the season. Yes! Midway through the third quarter. Oh, maybe there's a chance. No, there isn't. No, there isn't. Sam Darnold missed Justin Jefferson on multiple occasions, including on a 2-point conversion. Just whatever. This is garbage. Hockenson finally got in the end zone, and it took the whole year to get there. Darnold would be mediocre as bleep, but at least he threw a single touchdown. Stafford was strong. Stafford was clutch. And I don't know what else to say. It was just a complete transformation. Sam Darnold went from a guy who could be, looked like he could be one of the next, top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, top 10 at the bare minimum, to a guy who's, he could be a good starter for you during the regular season, but I don't know about the postseason. We'll see. You have to cross your fingers and hope that his head is on right and he's not too nervous coming into the game, because both of these games, Sam Darnold was the biggest letdown you ever saw. 14-2, and he was the starter for every one of those games, every single one of them, and then it all vanished. It all vanished like water in a frying pan. It just vanished, flash in a pan, gone, just like that. Just like that. Like, how could things change that quickly? I have no idea, but it truly did. A 14-3 team, 14-2 team at the very least, going into that final regular season game, and it all would vanish as terribly as it did. It's just not normal. It's not normal. Is it the purple uniform with the horns on the helmet? Is that what did it? Just like for the Yankees on the opposite side of the equation, the pinstripes scare away the other teams when it comes to the playoffs, and everything goes completely downhill for the other team, and the Yankees, regain their glory and go all the way and win World Series. Of course, that hasn't been happening lately, and that's okay. They made it last year, but they got their butts handed to them. I don't like the Dodgers any more than I like the Yankees, believe me. In fact, I cheered for the Yankees because I'm so tired of the Dodgers. Yeah, well, here's the other LA team right here. I don't know. I mean, historically in the past, the Vikings were the better team versus the Rams in the postseason, and this team should have probably won this game if all was fair and honest coming into this one. Vikings should have been the better team, but they weren't. The Rams were by far the superior team, and they almost beat the Philadelphia Eagles next week in a very snowy game, snowy battle. But the Eagles were just good enough after struggling around with the Green Bay Packers the week before. And then you saw Detroit have another thing happen. I mean, have a similar situation where their quarterback would turn into a pumpkin as well, just like he kind of did against us. He played like crap against the Vikings, and they still killed us 31-9. Still killed us 31-9. Vikings have managed 9 lousy points in both of the last 2 games. 18 frickin' points. That's horse bleep. That's how bad it is. But then Jared Goff, absolutely humiliated. The Detroit Lions wouldn't even win a single game after going 15-2 in the postseason. I mean, think about that. Think of how bad that is. As awful as we feel, think about Detroit fans as well. It's like so similar. It's crazy to think how Vikings and Lions, which one's going to the Super Bowl or whatever, which one's going to be the number 1 seed. One of them, they might go all the way to the Super Bowl this year. And even the 5th seed, maybe they'll pull off some miracle playoff run. Like whoever it is, if it's the Vikings or the Lions. Nope. There's this other team that was the number 2 team in the NFC that would go on and win the Super Bowl. As for the Washington, did I call them Redskins, the Washington Commanders? Yeah, we could call them what they are for now, unless their name does go back to Redskins someday. And yes, and if we're talking historical, like 1991, I will call them the Redskins. because that's what they were at the time. It's not the end of the world. Uh, but yeah, the way the Redskins Commanders would demolish Detroit. Detroit wouldn't win a single playoff game once again. Can you imagine? After ending the hiatus last year, how long that took. It's just crazy. And then they couldn't even win a single playoff game. Sad. Neither the Vikings or the Lions would get to the NFC title game because of that. Redskins, I keep calling them the Redskins. The Washington Commanders versus the Philadelphia Eagles. You got an NFC East battle. Classic. They split earlier in the year. The Eagles had crushed them. Then you have the stupid Chiefs getting through Buffalo and getting through Baltimore, and then Buffalo once again. Buffalo once again. Just kind of falling apart. And, of course, calls going against the Bills. Crucial calls going against the Bills. That just didn't feel right, didn't feel fair. But then, in the end, it all didn't matter. No matter how much we despise the Kansas City Chiefs, or think the refs are on their side, or this or that. The Eagles just came out and slaughtered them. And it was a beautiful thing to watch as far as I'm concerned at the end of the day. But this is a Vikings segment, I know, but I still might as well wrap up what the whole season wound up being. It's just crazy to think a 14-3 team could go down as bad as they did. It was heartbreaking, heart-wrenching. 14-2 ultimately, going down to 14-3, and then this happened. Just oofda, to say the least. The game did have to go to Arizona as well, as you can't forget the massive LA wildfires. Whereas, that was not handled very well over there. No, not by the LA Rams, but by, let's just say, the leadership in Los Angeles. Not the best. Really not too good. The leadership in LA or California in general. But we'll leave that opinion where it needs to be for maybe a Freedom of Thought episode. And I apologize I haven't been releasing that one as much lately because of the busy schedule. And in fact, I wasn't feeling so good at times as well. So the wrap-up of the actual regular season after putting a bow on looking over things. Apologize if that felt tedious, but it was a dramatic season, and figured that it's fun to kind of go over it again in terms of it was a fun season. It just ended so terribly, and that's what's so sad. So we're going to look at I always want to, partially I want to save this for fan interaction, but no, I think it's good to do it now because then it's all in the same place rather than waiting. I don't know what to do because I know it's going to be probably a quieter fan interaction segment, but we'll get to it now. Your vote for the 2024 Minnesota Vikings MVP. The candidates on this were Sam Darnold, Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Grenard, or Justin Jefferson. Well, as of right now, and if this updates, I'll update it on fan interaction. I'll go over this again on fan interaction for the fun of it, because maybe I've updated because they're not completely over yet. And if and hopefully somebody will vote by the time it happens. Of course, by the time the show's released, nothing will have changed. It'll already be final anyway. But as of right now, Andrew Van Ginkel and Justin Jefferson are tied, 37.5. Sam Darnold, 25%, and Jonathan Grenard, nothing. 0 for Jonathan Grenard. I'm kind of a little surprised by that. Your 24 Vikings season biggest disappointment. The candidates are T.J. Hawkinson, Garrett Bradbury, Brian Asamoah, and Ty Chandler. Well, T.J. Hawkinson and Ty Chandler are tied. What the heck, guys? And Brian Asamoah is in third with 11.1. Garrett Bradbury with 0. Your biggest surprise? Well, this one there is a leader, and a very strong one. Candidates are Sam Darnold, Byron Murphy Jr., John Parker Romo, and Pat Jones II. Well, Sam Darnold is winning in a landslide, 57.1. John Parker Romo coming in second right now, 28.6. Byron Murphy, 14.3. And then Pat Jones coming in with nothing. So my picks. Drum roll, please, for my picks. Your 2024 or 2024 MVP for the Minnesota Vikings here on the Purple Mafia Show is Andrew Van Ginkel. I'm going to give it to him. The pick sixes, the sacks. What did he have? 12 sacks. He was absolutely spectacular. Big difference maker, and he made the plays that can make a difference. Sam Darnold pretty much had it in the bag. Andrew Van Ginkel would have been a close second or third. He would have been right there with Jefferson. But everything, the way it all vanished, and he turned into a pumpkin. I'm sorry, I cannot give it to Sam Darnold. You're on Purple Mafia. He had it forever, and he lost it. Andrew Van Ginkel, congratulations. and becoming the State of the Vikings 2024 season MVP for Purple Mafia. So we'll just say 2024. Sorry. Biggest disappointment. This is a demerit, unfortunately. Well, it's obviously it's the four guys, the candidates. I have to go with T.J. Hawkinson because obviously coming back from an injury is one thing, but it felt like he just felt like he never regained his form. He dropped passes that were there for him. Garrett Bradbury, there was a response, and I'll read this again on Fan Interaction. Rhino, Vikings Uncensored podcast says, well, I haven't expected anything out of Bradbury in years, so it's hard to be disappointed in his performance. I understand. And yeah, we'll read that again in Fan Interaction. Unless I'm stupid and forget. But I am going to give it to T.J. Hawkinson. I thought he was very disappointing. Ty Chandler was very disappointing as well. And Brian Ostemo has been kind of never really done anything anyway, sadly. But he deserved to be on there, regardless. The biggest surprise, I think, is Sam Darnold in a landslide. I agree with that all the way. Even though Byron Murphy Jr. was a wonderful surprise. I'm surprised Parker Romo got as many votes as he did. But he was a nice surprise. Pat Jones, I'm disappointed he didn't get any. That's kind of a bummer. He was a nice surprise, too. What did he get, like 7 sacks? So he was very good this year. Byron Murphy, though, with 6 interceptions. That's absolutely amazing. Sam Darnold, though, bringing him the biggest surprise. He was absolutely great. So we'll look at some of the final stats here. Sam Darnold with 4,319 yards. Absolutely amazing year, generally speaking. 35 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. I mean, that's absolutely a Pro Bowl year. Even an MVP candidate, but not bringing it home. Aaron Jones, I was moderately disappointed in him as well. Surprisingly, he only had 3 fumbles lost. It felt like more. Darnold actually had 4 as he was strip sacked 4 times in the season, unfortunately. Cam Akers wound up with almost 300 yards. Good for him. 297 with a touchdown. Finally got in the end zone, the poor guy. Aaron Jones with 1,138 yards, 4.5 a carry, 5 touchdowns. Could have been better, could have been worse. Aaron Jones Sr., but he had his moments. Justin Jefferson, a great season and record-setting for a lot of Vikings history here. And for somebody, for the amount of games he's played in, absolutely looks like one of the greatest of all time. 5 years into his career, anyway. Played all 17 games, 103 catches, 1,533 yards, and 10 touchdowns. He did have a fumble, but it was not lost. So good there. Jordan Addison missed the first 2 games, wound up with 63 catches, 875 yards. Did not get 1,000 because of the late start, but he did get 9 touchdowns. He reached 10 last year. Jalen Naylor wound up with 6 touchdowns, 414 yards. So good numbers, but could be better, could be worse. Aaron Jones was pretty good as a receiver too, considering 408 receiving yards on 51 catches, 2 touchdowns. That's pretty good. Josh Oliver would have some clutch moments, 3 touchdowns for him on 258 yards. Johnny Munt even got in the end zone twice, which is funny. Sherfield had the big moment as well. Will Reichert missed 1 out of 7 from 30 to 29. He made all of his less kicks for 5 out of 5. From 50 plus, Will Reichert was also 8 of 11. Pretty good for pretty good. After struggling. When he returned, he certainly wasn't as good as he was before that. 5 of 7 on 40 to 49. Parker Romo only missed 1 field goal, and it was a 40 to 49 deal. He did make a 50-plus, but he also missed an extra point, unfortunately, where Will Reichert made all of his this year, knocking on wood. So Parker Romo officially had a higher field goal percentage overall, literally field goal percentage. This isn't basketball. I'm just having fun with that. But the extra point percentage, Reichert was perfect. Parker missed 1, unfortunately. So that's kind of a lot of the notables. Yep, defensively, you might want to go look at that quick. Jonathan Grenard wound up with 12 sacks. Andrew Van Ginkel wound up with 11.5. Great, awesome. 2 pick sixes officially for Andrew Van Ginkel. Byron Murphy Jr. with 6 interceptions. No pick sixes, though, but 14 passes deflected to lead the club. Stephon Gilmore actually had 9. He had some great moments, but he also stunk at times. We'll see what happens with him going forward, but we'll talk about the future when we get there. Blake Cashman did lead the team in tackles despite missing 3 games this season. 4.5 sacks on the year, 111 total tackles for him. Josh Metellus finished second with 103. He also had 2 interceptions. Cashman had 0. Both Harrison Smith and Cam Bynum added 3 interceptions. We'll see what happens. looking at something. Yeah, Kemo Gruger-Hill had a couple of massive interceptions. Very limited time out there as a linebacker, a reserve linebacker, but a couple of interceptions that were very game-changing, and we really appreciated those, to say the least. They were absolutely massive. Massive. But Andrew Van Ginkel will bring it home. The couple of pick sixes, some big moments, and yep, he was a wonderful story, to say the least, for the Minnesota Vikings. Rookie Dallas Turner, who had a sack in his first game, wound up with only 3, but, kind of, again, just kind of getting used to the NFL and such is Dallas Turner, so we'll have to wait and see how he progresses into next year. Not a great rookie season, unfortunately, but there was a lot of good depth in front of him, thanks to some great free agent moves by Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, working together with Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores. So looks like he's still sticking around, at least as of right now. So great news there. Sad for him, I'm sure, but great to have him back as the defensive coordinator of Minnesota. We appreciate him so much. We truly do. With that said, I think that wraps up the 2024 Minnesota Vikings. It puts a purple bow on it. So usually the first segment's going to be the biggest by far. But then again, the second segment could be big as well, because there's going to be a lot of fun conversation looking at the future, because that's what it's all about now as we go into 2025. That's why this is called State of the Vikings 2025. We'll be back for that next. And we are back here on Purple Mafia, segment number 2 of the State of the Vikings 2025. Free agency and draft, like mock draft, and which way I think the Vikings should probably lean towards and such. Well, free agency is kind of the main theme. The free agent window opens officially on March 12th, but the negotiating window opens on March 10th. So that would have been a better way to put it. Negotiating window opens March 10th, and it officially opens March 12th. Coming up in the not-too-distant future, we'd like to look at the actual days of the week. It's like you know it, and then you forget, and all of that jazz. That would be a Monday, March 10th, and Wednesday, March 12th. NHL trade deadline is also on the 7th. Check out Brave the Wild. That's coming up very soon. Brave the Wild's Minnesota Wild podcast. Unfortunately, my next show will be on Thursday, so it'll be right before that. Though they did make a trade for a guy who's 35 and gave up a second-rounder. And we're hearing nonstop of how it's probably not going to be an NHL player anyway. Second round picks in the NHL, I mean, come on. I know sometimes it isn't a player, but sometimes it is. I mean, I don't know. In the NFL, second rounders are, that's more expensive, I think. It's a more valuable pick than hockey. I get it. But still, I don't know. Like if the Vikings gave up a second rounder for a 35-year-old wide receiver or something, you'd be like, why'd you do that? That's kind of weird. The Wild finally scored. It took half of the game. They were shut out recently by the Boston Bruins. They're actually playing right now wearing North Star colors, which I love, against the Boston Bruins. No huge fight has broken out. No, I'm kidding. Like Minnesota-Boston 40 years ago. 1981 or so. It was way back in the day. Let's continue looking at the free agents and such. Let's also look at the Vikings salary situation before we even open things up. So going into 2025, Brian O'Neill has the highest cap hit / salary, $26 million, $19,114. That's 9.3% of the salary cap. TJ Hawkinson, who couldn't catch a cold last year, basically, when he finally came back, 16.8, 16, and then 850, basically. And then it goes up to 21,350 and 23,350 as the years move up, basically from 26 to 27, becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2028 with a cap hit of $1.75 million. Brian O'Neill's salary actually drops into 26, so 23,203, and then he's an unrestricted free agent in 2027. Justin Jefferson, 15.16, so on and so forth. Basically, this year, at 26 years of age, he's the third highest hit on the cap at the moment, unless we sign Sam Darnold to 40, which would be, we'll get to that in a little bit. Next year, of course, his salary explodes to almost 40, almost 39 million, basically 38.9876. Yeah, I don't know. That's 13.2% of the cap for a wide receiver. I know he's a phenomenal player. Once it gets to 40, yeah, so then it goes up to 43, basically 43 and a half in 27, and then 47. 47.5 basically in 28, and then becomes an unrestricted free agent with a cap hit of $6 million in 29. $47 million. Somehow I can imagine methinks there'll be a restructure somewhere along the lines there. Methinks. Yeah. Christian Darrisaw, 10.2 right now into 25, but then obviously his salary bumps to 23.1 in 26, and then in 27, 24.8. And then in 28, 31.1, and then in sequencing it drops back down to 28.4 and 29. So all right, so this the limit is up to 29 here on this thing. This is Sport Tack, and thank you very much. No, Spot Track. My apologies. Eddie Ingram, yeah, 3.6. Maybe he'll be released. We'll see what happens. How much potential dead cap we might end up having. It doesn't show that it would be dead cap. Aaron Jones, I think, yeah, he's a free agent right now, but I think we have a dead cap of 3.2 with him at the moment, so that's kind of interesting. Garrett Bradbury, unrestricted free agent after this year, $6 million right now as a center, age 30 already. It seems like yesterday the Vikings drafted him. He's 30? Man. Josh Oliver seems a little expensive, but good, great blocker, $9.5 million basically, so on and so forth. We'll see what happens. Ed Ingram. This doesn't really show. I think I have to probably, you have to probably move it around to see how things are. You probably have to hit the cap. Because you want to see what type of a hit it could be. Dead cap, got it. Okay. Yeah, you just have to click the buttons. That was kind of to look at the length of the contracts. Well, we're done with that. So, possible cuts. Obviously, you're not going to cut Brian O'Neill, but if you did, you'd have a dead cap of almost $12 million. Jonathan Grenard, if you cut him, you'd have a dead cap of 32. And Jonathan Grenard is making 22 right now. Shoot, I should have looked at his salary, but that's okay. Yeah, I could backtrack. It doesn't takes one click. That was really hard, Joey. Where is he? Why am I not seeing Jonathan Grenard in here? Something doesn't make sense. Didn't we sign him? Oh, this is all offensive players. Isn't it? Yeah, what the heck? Let me see the defense here. What the heck? Okay, you just got to keep going down. Oh, it's all the different players. Okay, Jonathan Grenard, 22.3, yes. And then it stays at 22.3 every year into 2027, and then he's a free agent in 28 at that point. Pardon me. Brian Murphy is what he is, free agent. So definitely could be. Obviously, they're saying that obviously he's going to get a huge bump in salary if the Vikings are able to keep him. Could be looking at what was it, up to 15 million or something. So we'll see. Anywhere from 10 to 15 million, around that range. I know my stuff is all over the place. Harrison Smith did a restructure. Unrestricted free agent after this year, and he's only 6.5 right now. That's not too much, but I'm guessing his dead cap will be a little bit higher if the Vikings cut him, and I don't think they're going to cut him or anything. Interesting. Yeah, looking at the dead cap, that's a big thing. Obviously, 32 million if the Vikings cut Jonathan Grenard, and we're not going to do that. T.J. Hawkinson's the one that kind of sucks. Dead cap of almost $29 million. And if the Vikings cut Justin Jefferson, $80 million. Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. Don't worry. Christian Darrisaw is just under $40 million. If the Vikings did a dead cap, Harrison Smith, yeah, 9.5. That doesn't surprise me because of the restructuring. They call that kicking the can down the road. You know, it just is. 4.2 right now for Brian Murphy at the moment. So that's kind of interesting how all that works. 3.2 for AJ, Aaron Jones. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. So we'll see. And then you get into the really low-end guys, like $1.5 million type of guys. So we don't need to really talk about them too much. J.J. McCarthy, of course, still on the rookie contract. And more and more to possibly get going on that. Like, why the hell not? Yeah, the only other quarterback officially on inked for next season is Brett Ripien at about $1 million. Well, $1,055,000. Yeah. Whereas J.J. McCarthy's making just under $5 million, at the moment, into going into 25, into 26, just under 6, and in 27, just under 7, if that makes any sense. 28 is to be decided, and 29 is unrestricted free agent. But I got to think there'll be an extension signed by 28, as long as J.J. McCarthy is healthy and playing, and we're not raptured off this planet somehow. So at some point, I know I'm just playing around. Well, Ed Ingram, still on a rookie scale, unrestricted free agent after the season if the Vikings move on. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that. So it could be possible dead cap conversation. Now I'm hitting the wrong button again. Okay, go forward, you idiot. Doggone it. Okay, I just got to hit the button. Oh, well. Yep. What would the dead cap be on Captain, Ed Ingram? Yeah, it's $300,000. So, basically $400,000. So that's not too bad of the Vikings. That's, unfortunately, for Ed Ingram, that's a strong possibility. He could be gone. Blake Brandel, almost $1.8 million if the Vikings move on from Blake Brandel, double B. So that'd be interesting. Garrett Bradbury, about 2.5 if the Vikings were to make a move on him and move on. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. So you do have to worry about dead cap with certain guys. Harrison Phillips, I don't think the Vikings would do that. It's over $10 million. Josh Oliver, going into free agency after the season possibly. But, he's expensive, but, and you'd save in the cap about $5 million if you cut him. So you go from 9 to 4, basically, in terms of equaling things out. But, like certain guys, you save half. Otherwise, in other cases, you'd go way up. But, of course, the Vikings are not going to cut Justin Jefferson or Christian Darrisaw, Jonathan Grenard. T.J. Hockenson, I would have considered it, but that dead cap is high, baby. It's high. It's way too high. So it kind of is what it is. You're kind of stuck with TJ now. I was afraid when he signed that contract, and he looked pretty good for a while, and then he got the terrible injury. So totally figures how things like that happen and all that. So obviously free agency, you are looking at salary caps and dead caps because it's kind of part of it. That's kind of part of the conversation here when you're talking about the Minnesota Vikings going into 25 and potentially 26. But 25 is a conversation here, of course. Darrisaw signed for many years and hopefully a very healthy knee coming back. Hopefully he'll have enough time to heal there. It's a freaking bummer. Michael Juergens, a lot of people seem to like him. He's on a rookie scale contract for the next 3 years, so good for him. Rookie scale, very inexpensive as he was a late round pick, just over $1 million. And just under starting off here this year, and then this year being 25 and going up just a little bit every year in small increments, if it's okay to say small increments. Jordan Addison also on a rookie scale, 3.7 going up to 4.3, 3.7 in 25, 4.3 into 26. People talking about possibly trading him and then drafting another big name receiver or making a free agent signing. I don't know. How much money are we paying Justin Jefferson right now? So I don't know. This year it's 15, but then it goes up to the moon next year. That is a lot. It's a lot of money to be paying a wide receiver. Not saying I'm majorly complaining, but it is kind of like quarterback money, which, again, does scare me a little bit. Hopefully he can stay healthy and continue to be as excellent as he has been. Pardon me. Possible free agents. The Vikings do have cap space. We are one of the highest teams in the NFL in terms of cap space because we don't have a Kirk Cousins on the roster. And Justin Jefferson's salary doesn't kick in until 26. You're looking at receivers possibly and offensive linemen. Trey Smith could be looking at a pretty big payday coming from the KC Chiefs, the AFC champions, excuse me. Sorry, I had to say that. I know, I'm not trying to be a jerk. And one other thing, too, I might as well bring this up here. I probably should have mentioned it on Freedom of Thought instead, but when fans booed because of the snide comments made locally by certain people that lean a certain way, the snide comments against the fans. When fans booed Taylor Swift, and is that just because they're just a bunch of rednecks and MAGA, whatever? You know what? Fans booed her because we're sick of her. That's why. Fans booed Taylor Swift because we're sick of her. That's why. That's all. That's all. You can say whatever you want. Pardon me. Milton Williams is another conversation, but again, how much do you want to give to some of these guys? I don't know. But Milton Williams is ranked number 3, coming from the world champion Philadelphia Eagles, 26 years of age, just like Trey Smith. Obviously, again, how much money are we going to be able to fork out to some of these guys? you're going to hope for something. Sam Darnold is ranked number 6. So we'll see what happens. But there's also saying, are you getting the revived Darnold from the first 16 games of the 2024 season, or the one who couldn't make quick decisions in the final 2 blowout losses? Yes. Yeah, interesting. So that's how that goes. Josh Sweat is an edge, of course, but the Vikings, I think, need interior line help. I think on the edges we're okay. I think so. I think we're doing fine, and we have a nice pass rush, but you need a little help in the interior line. That's where you're looking at possibly a Milton Williams. M.W. Milton Williams. That sounds like somebody from, sounds like maybe Milton's grandpa, more than Milton Williams. Like Wilton, like his grandpa. Doesn't it sound like somebody that'd be his grandpa? Or even somebody from back in the day, Milton Williams. Hey, he's here. He's got his lunchbox. He's got his steel lunchbox ready to work. Got his hard hat ready to go. Kicking some, working. Never smiles because he's a tough guy. One of the Milton Williams. That's what it sounds like. An old like tough guy, construction or something like that, factory, something like that. Type of guy, old Milton Williams. He could rip a phone book open, Anyhow, I apologize. Amari Cooper, no, I don't think so. And he didn't do a whole lot, did he? He's ranked number 13, and he's 31 years of age. Drew Dahlman's a name that's been brought up. He's 26 years of age. He's a center. That depends on how much you want to spend on that guy. Brian Murphy Jr. I'm so sick of clearing my throat on these shows. It sounds so tacky, so I apologize profusely on that. Brian Murphy, cornerback, again, Minnesota Vikings. Byron Murphy, 27 years of age. Murphy lived up to the 2-year, $22 million free agency signed in Minnesota. The Pro Bowler's feisty, and he can play inside and out. Yep, and he could be looking at a pretty solid payday, like $15 million or more per at the end of the day. Sorry. Will Freeze, we've heard about him a few times, coming from the Colts. He broke his tibia in Week 5 of 2024. He's likely to get paid plenty despite the injury, so that's ranked number 19. So guys like that may want to look at the interior line on both sides of the trenches. Yep, meat and potatoes off season. See, last year you had the quarterback type of deal. Some years it's like, yeah, we need another receiver, and it's like, this Jordan Addison guy looks pretty good, and I endorsed Jordan Addison as the pick, and then he was the pick. And then the next year I endorsed this quarterback of the Michigan Wolverines, The Michigan Wolverines had just won a national championship and looked a lot like Joe Burrow out there. And then, so it's back-to-back years I endorsed a pick. And the guy ended up being the pick. Now, that was pretty cool. Obviously, mock drafts pointed in that direction, especially J.J. McCarthy. But it's like still the GM has to make the decision. So they must have been hearing a lot. And I'm very pleased with both of the picks for the most part. Now, we'll see what happens. Well, with either one of them, you never know how their health is going to go, and what the Vikings might do. Obviously, off-season frustrations with Jordan Addison, off-the-field frustrations like speeding car nonsense, and we don't want to talk about speeding cars here in Minnesota for so many reasons. Obviously, guys getting in trouble or really terrible things happening on July 5th, 2024. We don't want to think about that kind of stuff around here. I don't want to think about that. It's depressing. Khalil Mack, he's an edge, 34 years of age now from the Chargers, 34 years of age. I always thought he was going to have a Super Bowl ring, but maybe he still will. I can imagine him pass rushing, making a great play. Asante Samuel Jr. is a name brought up. I still remember Senior. He was knocked for his poor tackling inability to play press coverage. Samuel is a playmaker who steadily improved his Chargers tenure. In his Chargers tenure, he'd be a big asset to the right system, and possibly with our guy, Brian Flores. So Asante Samuel could be a cornerback free agent type of deal, especially if we end up losing out or passing up on Byron Murphy Jr. Asante Samuel could be a possible replacement who's slightly younger as well. We've even heard the name Justin Reed off and on. So we'll see. He's 28 years of age, a safety at the end of the day. Justin Field is out there. He's ranked 21. Is he the second highest quarterback? I think he is, behind Sam Darnold. He's the top free agent quarterback going into this offseason. He's ranked number 6 overall. Ronnie Stanley's a name that's been brought up, I believe, from the Baltimore Ravens. Yep. Well, he's an offensive tackle, and I don't think the Vikings are going to be signing an offensive tackle unless we believe Christian Darrisaw is, not recovering well enough. But I think that's where you'd sign Cam Robinson back You know, I mean, you have Christian Darrisaw, and he signed for many years. Brian O'Neill, we'll see what happens. I wouldn't be surprised if he either restructures at some point in the next year or so, or is no longer a Viking, one way or another, possibly. It's kind of sad to think that, isn't it? Seems like yesterday the Vikings took him in the draft, kind of a semi-reach, and ended up being an awesome pick years ago to give us finally something of a tackle on this bleeping team. Or years ago we had nothing. We had literally nothing. It was bleeping frustrating. So, yep, there's Cam Robinson. He's ranked 28th. I'll be daggone. He's ranked 28th? That's pretty high. I'm guessing he's probably not going to come back, probably because he's a starter. And that Christian Darrisaw is going to come back and be able to play because it'll have been several months, and I mean like 9 months. Hopefully that's enough time to bring a guy back and get out there, but we'll see. Possibly. Well, we'll see. Cam Robinson is 29 years of age already. Obviously, again, he played left tackle for the Vikings in the stead of Christian Darrisaw, like talking about in segment numero uno of this Granddaddy show. Twice given the franchise tag by the Jaguars, Robinson will probably be viewed as a league average starting left tackle. That's an upgrade for plenty of teams. And yeah, years ago, we would have killed to have Cam Robinson on the Minnesota Vikings. You realize that? So it was kind of crazy and cool at the same time when the Vikings ended up picking him up. It's like, really? How come it was that easy now and we couldn't do that in the past? Like 2016, something like that. 2016, we picked up a guy who'd had, multiple ACLs. Like, what did he have? Like 2 or 3 ACLs and such. Great player, but too many freaking injuries. So, and it's like he'd kind of given up and people had given up on him. That was Jake Long. And it was like, wow, we at least got this guy out, a big name, and then Achilles. And he said, I'm done. I'm out. Stephon Diggs, ranked number 30. He's a free agent. He's not coming back here. He's crazy. He's mercurial. Is he really a free agent? Didn't he just... Oh, yeah, it was a trade. Transitory to a category slot option before tearing his ACL with the Texans. Stay in Houston would make sense for both sides. Yep, I agree. Especially, again, now the other guy over there, was it Tank Dell, I believe it was? Had a Teddy Bridgewater knee injury in the playoff game. Unfortunately, a loss to the Yuck City Chefs. Yuck City Chefs. Can't stand them, obviously. I think I've made my point on that one. I think so. Yeah, I mean, literally a Teddy Bridgewater level injury on his knee. I mean, that is really unfortunate. Really unfortunate. So you're hoping that Stephon Diggs can come back healthy if you're the Texans. What other guys have been brought up? Yeah, defensive tackle Calais Campbell from the Florida Panthers. That's hockey. The Miami Dolphins. They play in the same city, I believe, or at least close by anyway. The comment here. This is all NFL.com and such. This may seem like a high ranking for a year-to-year guy who turns 39. Okay, never mind. 39 in September. But Campbell is consistently one of the best players on every team he joins. I'm sick of constantly ranking him low too. I'm sick of constantly ranking him too low. Yeah, so he's one of those guys who's underrated. Tell me about it. Anyway, but unfortunately, 39. Wow. Defensive tackle. Hey, maybe it's like a 1 year kind of thing. Give him a shot, and who knows? Maybe he ends up winning a Super Bowl finally. Josh Myers is a possible center coming from the Pack. I believe that looks like the Packers, right? No one can seem to agree on whether Myers was a weak link to the Packers' strong offensive line or an ascending player. Either way, he played a lot and is going to get paid to start by some team. So, we'll see. We'll see if he comes across the border here. Aaron Jones is a free agent. Faded late in the otherwise, he was ranked number 40. Otherwise, excellent season for the Vikings. He'd be a great pickup, especially paired with a younger option in the backfield. Yeah, and I do hope the Vikings do draft a quarter running back this draft, almost certainly, because I don't think Ty Chandler's the answer. I do want Cam Robinson back, absolutely, in a kind of like a lesser Chester Taylor role, which is basically what he was this year, kind of a lesser Chester Taylor role. Like Chester Taylor had more snaps than Cam Akers, but I like Cam Akers, dang it. I don't think he's in the top 100, but maybe he is. Cam Bynum, yeah, that's a big one. Obviously, Minnesota Vikings, he's ranked number 55. Safety, love to see him back, but odds are he might not be. That's what they're saying, unfortunately. A player who probably has more value to the Vikings than any other team because of his intelligence in Brian Flores' system and his creativity with celebrations. That's great. Bynum should be re-signed so that the Vikings don't have to replace their entire secondary. Feel you? Yeah, and I hope the Vikings are able to bring him back at a price that is, requisite to his talents. B.J. Hill, if you want to get you want to get a veteran defensive tackle in from the Cincinnati Bungles. Hill has perfected the 700 snaps season of useful production that every team needs in a rotation. So like a piece, a piece to the defensive line. That'd be cool. See how that goes. J.K. Dobbins, could he be a possible running back signing? I don't know. Yeah, he had an Achilles. Yep. So another, kind of like Cam Akers that way, unfortunately. Jacoby Brissett. Well, yeah, Jacoby Brissett could be a veteran quarterback option as a backup to J.J. McCarthy. Like a bridge kind of backup. Yep. I've always liked Jacoby Brissett, and I always kind of imagined him here. James Daniels, offensive guard. Yeah, he was drafted by the Bears years ago. He's only 27. It seems like years and years and years and years ago, doesn't it? He must have been young. Wow. Yep, that's crazy. Played for the Bears and Steelers, coming off a torn Achilles tendon. Fudge, which hurts his value greatly. But maybe you look at that. Offensive guard, James Daniels, that's a name that's been brought up, so maybe if you want to go less expensive and pray to God for his, for his strength. Obviously, again, you need push off of that. You need push off of your heels. So it happens. I mean, you need to be able to have that push. So I mean, it's a pretty crucial spot for any football player, any athlete. But I mean, offensive line. Holy Toledo, isn't that about as big as it gets? So Ryan Kelly's been a name brought up, a veteran center. You've heard that one. Because, they kind of go all over the place. Jimmy Garoppolo is a bridge guy, possibly 33 years of age. Another bridge backup, maybe even a starter for somebody out there. Stephon Gilmore's ranked 75, 34 years of age. I don't think he's coming back, but we'll see. He had some good moments, and he wasn't good in other times. Obviously getting up there and such. Brandon Scherf, we've heard that name a bit, coming from Jacksonville. Former All-Pro Scherf. Scherf has... he stayed all these for 3 years. Yep. Serviceable starter, offensive guard if you want to get just kind of a veteran and it's not too expensive. Yep. So those are other conversations. Daniel Jones is ranked 84. We'll see what happens if he comes back to the Minnesota Vikings or not. Interesting. Jones' running abilities. Yep, he's the quarterback, obviously. Is he 28 already? It seems like yesterday he was picked by the Giants. Jones' running ability raises his floor, and he's shown he can produce well protected. But there's a question whether he's the same player since his neck injuries and torn ACL. Yeah. I vaguely remember him having an ACL, but I guess it did happen, didn't it? Vaguely. So we're kind of keep going down. DeAndre Hopkins is now ranked 92. Remember how good he used to be with Houston? Man, it's crazy. DJ Jones, Denver Broncos, 30 years old, veteran kind of a guy again. Veteran starter type of guy if you want to look at that. Again, for the less expensive, Aaron Banks, 28. Yeah, he had some moments. Obviously, second round pick, years ago. Mike Jackson is a cornerback option, possible. Former Seahawk in Carolina. Held up pretty well in 24, so they say. Defensive line, Sebastian Joseph Day. He's a veteran, 30 years of age. Nick Chubb, wow. And he's number 101. Nick Chubb. Remember that guy. So, I don't know. For the Vikings at running back, I want a younger guy. But, I mean, again, I look at this as a meat and potatoes type of thing. Looking for some guards. Did I mention we need some guards? Right, Gerald? Yep, did I mention we need some guards? We probably, one or two for sure. And, of course, in the draft, at least one or two for sure, and a defensive tackle of some sort, interior line on the offense and defense, I think, in free agency, looking at that, and the draft. But also in the draft, as we're going to slightly shift over, we're going to try to shift over there. We went on free agency forever, but that's closer. That's much more pending. But the draft, obviously, is insanely important. And we're going to keep those coming. Daniel Jeremiah. Let's go there for NFL for now. Draft 2.0. Vikings pick running backs in round 1. Okay. Yep. The Tennessee Titans take Abdul Carter. He's an edge. Cam Ward goes to Cleveland. Good for him. The Giants, we'll see what happens there. So I didn't talk much about Sam Darnold, though, in terms of where he may wind up. I'm sorry. So odds are the Vikings are going to try to franchise Sam Darnold and make a trade, but again, it's risky because you could be looking at $40 million possibly on the cap if you end up not being able to trade Sam Darnold and you have him for just a single season, and then maybe then it's the big goodbye, so to speak. But imagine having a possible $40 million player. You're kind of stuck there. He pretty much has to start, but not necessarily. I mean, look at the Falcons. Holy cow. So there's that possibility. Matthew Stafford is restructured, like we talked about, and he's staying with the Los Angeles Rams. So now the favorites are the Giants or the Raiders, basically, right now. Las Vegas Raiders are the favorites to acquire Sam Darnold via free agency or a trade going forward. So those are the main conversations at the moment regarding Sam Darnold leaving the Vikings. I'm completely fine with it if that ends up being the case, because I mean, I don't know. I think you have to potentially move on. I can't imagine the Vikings, forking over a contract of $45 million. That'd be quite a cap hit, and you might as well cancel free agency in every other way. And hope to God the guy survives the season, basically, with no line, a mediocre offensive line protecting him. And, of course, again, Christian Darrisaw coming off a torn ACL, MCL type of deal. Not good. Obviously, again, with that Los Angeles defensive lineman rolling up on him from behind, that was devastating. It was in the end zone, of course. So a very devastating moment when you saw Darrisaw coming up lame like that. It was, horrific and heartbreaking to say the least. Other teams, again, Raiders, Giants, Steelers, and Titans are among trade options for Sam Darnold. Because right now, the Titans are looking at taking the edge, Abdul Carter. So maybe there you go. That's like Matt Castle again going to the Titans like he did when he left Minnesota, if I remember correctly. Yes, Matt Castle went to the Tennessee Titans. For Sam Darnold, obviously, could be better than Matt Castle, but we'll have to wait and see, I guess, for how that works out. So the top quarterback's going to Cleveland at the moment, and yes, they could do that. They really could use that help. This is, again, it's not the richest draft in the world, particularly at the skill positions, but we'll have to wait and see. Sometimes you say that, and then some pretty surprising studs emerge. Vikings are picking 24th at the moment, and it's Trevion Henderson coming to Minnesota from the Ohio State. The Vikings have had an up-close look at what a dynamic runner can do for an offense that also features a loaded passing attack. See Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit. Minnesota finds its own running back weapon in Henderson, with Aaron Jones headed for free agency. Trevion Henderson. And, yep, that might be a guy I end up endorsing. This is not the time for me to do that. Coming from Hopewell, Virginia. He was a senior, 5'10", 202. So stocky. Stocky, looks pretty big. Obviously got the V-shaped trapezoid action going on. And, of course, you're going to see that on a National Football League running back. So not too surprising. Eventually will be a starter, so they say. That's the prospect grade. Interesting. But one of the better running backs going into this draft, and you're hoping for something along those lines. Trevion Henderson is, again, it wouldn't surprise me if the Vikings definitely went in that direction, because, we need a starting running back. Who are number 32 for Ohio State. Obviously, they every year are way up there as one of the top teams in the country, year in and year out. And a guy like Trevion Henderson, obviously, is a big piece of that. He had 1,016 yards on 144 carries, 7.1 per average. Holy mother, man. 10 touchdowns, 7.1. So definitely some explosiveness, to say the least. And he's got pretty solid amount of receiving yards going back to 2021. He had 312 receiving yards as a freshman in 21. Looked like missed a significant amount of time in 22. He had 1,248 yards and 15 touchdowns. So his freshman year, him being a Trevion Henderson, man, he could have been like a top NFL prospect after that. Four receiving touchdowns, 15 rushing touchdowns, 1,248, 6.8 a carry. He's never averaged less than 5 yards a carry, even in his weakest season in 22, 5.3. 23, he averaged almost 6 yards a carry. Oh, 926 yards and 11 touchdowns. And again, last year, like I said, 10 touchdowns and a 7.1 per carry. Almost 300 receiving yards on 27 catches, a single receiving touchdown. The stat that excites me the most in a lot of ways, despite a lot of, encouraging signs here. Obviously, again, big yards per carry. Could be a wonderful running back in the NFL, at least you'd hope. And this is not a pre-draft thing. Or I'm going to scout him more. He's definitely going to be one of the top guys. I might even end up endorsing this guy, but I will not at this moment because this is not the draft preview. Okay, so are you ready for a pretty sexy statistic? Unless this is a mistake, and I hope it isn't. Fumbles. So just the flat-out fumbles. Fumbles lost, 0. Fumbles at all, 0. Along with this. Hear what that is? That's called wood. Knock, knock, knock. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, Trevion, keep it up. Come to Minnesota and do the same thing, okay? Please, especially in playoff games. 0. Zilch. Nada. Zilch. Zip, zip, blah, blah. Just no fumbles, okay? But that's exciting. That's kind of cool, to say the least. Let's look at some other mock drafts. That excites me. He can hang on to the ball. Daniel Jones couldn't hang on to the ball real well, could he? In fact, it was freaking annoying. I mean, it was really annoying. Debu Samuel, traded to the Commies, as some people call him, otherwise a 5th-round pick, to the Commanders. Debu Samuel, 5th-round pick. Interesting. That's kind of, that's not much, is it? I know a 5th-round pick in the NFL is a lot more than in hockey, but still, when you see the Wild giving up what they did, it's crazy. Jahdae Barron, this is on the Fox Sports mock draft, 24th. Jahdae Barron, cornerback from Texas, which again is a possibility. I mean, we drafted a cornerback in last year's draft, and he's no longer on this planet. I mean, God rest his soul. Pardon me. I'm sorry. It is so sad. The defense was excellent under Brian Flores last season, but the cornerback play was poor outside of Brian Murphy in the slot. Getting all those INTs and such. So, yes, would not surprise me if the Vikings take a cornerback either, high or middle rounds of the draft. Same with the running back position. You might end up picking up a spectacular running back in the 3rd or 4th round. You never know. You just don't. Waiting to the 7th round and taking, like the guy we did just, a couple of years ago, that didn't get us real far. Ty Chandler was an okay pick, but he's more of a fast guy who can't do a whole lot else, which was kind of annoying. The Draft Network, NFL Combine, Fallout. Number 1, New York Giants. What is this, some kind of a trade? Yeah, it's a trade for Tennessee. They take Cam Ward. Cleveland takes a cornerback, and so on and so forth. And Abdul Carter still goes to the Titans at 3. I'm sure they'd like that. A little extra draft capital mixed in there. Minnesota Vikings at 24. Take it. Yep, so it's another player. Jihad Campbell, linebacker, Alabama. Roll Tide Roll. Jahid Campbell established himself as a first-round selection at the NFL Combine. Campbell is an elite athlete with easy movement skills. His ability to defend the run, rush the passer, and play in coverage would be maximized in Brian Flores' defense. Well, it sounds really good. I wouldn't complain if that's the case. If he's as good as they're saying, that'd be awesome. It'd be interesting, but I mean, it's a possibility. I think the Vikings could go anywhere pretty much in this draft, except probably quarterback. Obviously not quarterback. We're not going to take a quarterback, except maybe later on if you look at some kind of developmental backup type of guy. And that's about it. Otherwise, I don't think we're looking at an edge or a tackle either. Possibly an edge, but I mean, you might take one later in the draft, but I don't think in like the top pick or 2 for Minnesota are going to go to edge, tackle, or quarterback. Or let's simply not kicker. That'd be kind of stupid. It'd be kind of weird too. I'm trying to see if some of those other names are floating around here that were in the other mock drafts, because some of these mock drafts are all over the place. I don't see any of the guys. What the heck? Where's the running back? Or was he taken way higher? I don't see him. Don't know. I don't know. That's the Minnesota Wild's general manager. You know what? I don't know. You know what? I don't know. Okay, thanks, Bill. Okay, next, let's continue. Tankathon? Should I go there? Maybe later. I mean, I love those draft simulators. They're awesome. Pro Football Network. Okay, let's go there. That's a big one. Maybe I have to pay $50 to be able to get. Yeah, I'd even see a mock draft. Yeah, this is a simulator, and I think you do have to pay maybe on some of these. I mean, it's Pro Football Network. Well, Pro Football Network. Where's the mock draft? How about just a mock draft? Okay, never mind. Yep. I mean, I'll do a simulator in the next couple of episodes. I'm probably not going to do one on this one. Is there another one? Is this the same thing? Chad Roeder. Yep, one of the big boys. This looks like the same. Oh, okay. Yeah, he has the Titans taking Cam Ward. That's interesting. Okay, so it is different. That's important. See if there's any familiar names floating around. But, yeah, I like the idea of taking a running back. Where's the Vikings? Oh, come on. So the Bills will send the 30th pick with 2 fourth-rounders. Okay, yeah, we have no selections in the 4th round. Okay, I get it. So there's Jaheed Campbell. He went to the Dolphins at 25. There's a familiar name. I'm just going to look for fun here, see if... Nope. Okay, all right. Maybe we'll still get our running back at 30th. Oh, is it going to happen? No. Well, we didn't take him anyway. So 30th pick, the Vikings add a couple of 4th rounders. But we take another cornerback in this case. Florida State cornerback junior, Azahir Thomas. The Vikings face the possibility of a near-complete turnover at the cornerback position. Hopefully we can force turnovers as well. Okay, sorry. This offseason with 4 veterans, including starter Stephon Gilmore and Byron Murphy, I keep doing that, scheduled for free agency. Thomas's size, 6'1", 191, sounds lanky, and aggressiveness in coverage make him a first-round value. All right, sounds good. Jackson Dart could be the quarterback for the Jets, at least in this mock draft. And I don't see that running back anywhere unless he went way the heck higher. And I don't think so. Yep. Quinshon Judkins, he'll probably be on my list to look at. Yeah, he goes 21 here. Coming from Ohio State. Okay. Ohio State. Yeah, that's right. They had a duo thing going on there. Interesting. Very interesting how all that works out. Yeah, none of the other guys went like super duper high from what I can tell. We'll try one more mock draft and then kind of move on from this. But yeah, I mean, the draft, again, I look at it as meat and potatoes potentially, but running back I think is way up on my list. Running back is way up there. So I would love to have a running back on Minnesota. I think I want to look at Walter Football. Like, how do you not like Walter Football mock draft? Let's do this. Unless they don't exist anymore. Yeah, there it is. Walter Football's been around forever. I know Phil Mackey likes it. He's always looking at that. He's on the Score North and Purple Daily and all that cute stuff. It's a funky website sometimes. There's Cam Ward going number 1 again. Sounds like a goalie for the Carolina Panther. Excuse me. What are they called? Carolina Hurricanes years ago. We're going to take a running back? Yeah, I know. Because we're in the later part. You got to click on the button again. Ugh. I don't know why he does that. Yeah. Yep, you gotta fudge around. I almost dropped an F-bomb. Sorry. Another different player. What the heck? Yeah, so there's really no definitive guy this time, is there? Not even close. Last year was J.J. McCarthy, and then a couple other times. Bo Nix. Oh, not Bo Nix. What are you doing? Not that guy. No, he is a pretty good player, but I think I like J.J. McCarthy's long-term prospects versus Bo Nix. Bo Nix is kind of plug and play, and looks like he might be a guy who can get you to the playoffs. And he can get you to the playoffs. Anything else? He can get you to the playoffs. Sounds like Minnesota. So luckily, hopefully McCarthy can get you a lot further in the playoffs. Next, Minnesota Vikings, Milwaukee Starks, safety out of Georgia. Yep, one of the massive powerhouses now in college football. Georgia, yeah. Harrison Smith doesn't have much time remaining. The Vikings could use another safety. All right. A quarterback in high school, Milwaukee, so he might go to Milwaukee or go fishing at Lake Mille Lacs or something, but sorry. It's Malachi. It's not Milwaukee. It's Malachi. Zechariah Malachi. The end of the Old Testament, but spelled differently. I apologize. A quarterback in high school, Malachi Starks is a star in the making, according to Charlie Campbell's sources. Well, Charlie Campbell's sources, I hope you're right, because it'd be nice to have a star in the making in Malachi Starks as safety for the Vikings going forward. Yeah, I mean, you know, it wouldn't surprise me either. It wouldn't surprise me if the Vikings take, yeah, I mean, like the secondary could be bleeped. Obviously, again, Harrison Smith is ancient, even though he's not, but he is. He is, you know, every 5 minutes you're hearing, oh, is this his last year? Is this his last year? We've been talking about that for the last couple of years. He was drafted in 2012, not 1812. That's the one thing I'm getting kind of think it's a little silly. 2012 is a while ago, but again, it's not 1812. Jeez, he's not that old, is he? Gosh. Or even 1912. He wasn't drafted in 1912 either. You got that century as well to deal with. But no, if you can get an outstanding safety to make this secondary better, I mean, sure, okay. It is pretty fluid going into this draft. How do you like, what is one word you can throw in this draft or where the Vikings could be headed towards? Fluid. You know, running back, safety, cornerback, offense, guard, interior line on offense, interior line on defense. That's kind of it, and along with free agency as well. But if you can get a damn good young safety that can last for many, many years, okay. I mean, that's kind of what happened with Harrison Smith years ago. I was like, yeah, that's a pretty nice draft pick, and he ended up working out great. I believe, what's his name did is one of those, trading up late in the first round and then taking this Harrison Smith guy. That was pretty cool. 2 years, or the next year, he did it with that stupid wide receiver who didn't pan out all too great, Cordero Patterson, who I was extremely excited about. Oops. Yeah, I apologize for that. I did endorse him as the pick, by the way. If I remember going into that year, I was pumped about Cordero Patterson. And I forget who I endorsed in 14, but then we wound up trading up for Bridgewater, which was very exciting at the time as well. Very exciting, to say the least. I think I endorsed Michael Thomas in one of those. And then Sebastian, who I haven't heard from in years now, basically was like, I don't agree with you at all. And Michael Thomas ended up being pretty good. So, I mean, it's okay. You can be right, you can be wrong. It's kind of, again, fluent. This is a very fluent draft. We don't know exactly what's going to happen at the end of the day. But it's exciting. It's always a lot of fun, and you always like to at least have that first round off. If you're a second shift person, you want to take that night off. With that said, I think I'm going to wrap this up again. Hope you enjoyed the back and forth speculation and possibilities where the Vikings could be headed and the information on this guy and that guy. With that, we'll take a quick break and come back for fan interaction here on Purple Mafia. And we are back here on Purple Mafia, segment number 3 of the State of the Vikings 2025 episode. Granddaddy of them all, of course. I keep saying it on every segment, but what the heck. Let's open up with the Twitter account, or X, at Purple Mafia Show, at Purple Mafia Show. I'll even check out the Instagram as well. That's, Purple Mafia Show on the Instagram. Maybe I'll go there first. Yep, sorry. Kind of bouncing around. It's all just one word, Purple Mafia Show on Instagram. And we get the infamous spinning wheel stuff. And, hoping to have something come up. I thought I had it. I apologize for my tardiness. No comments. Okay, no comments on there, unfortunately, but it's been fairly inactive of late, but figured I'd check anyway because sometimes there are. The X account, there's not going to be a whole lot there either. I want to thank Vince Germano for retweeting the most recent episode. Purple Mafia episode 451, no three-peat, Eagles soar. You like that? You like that name? No three-peat, Eagles soar. Oh, they soared all right. They soared all the way to the top. Other than that, another retweet. Well, that's Brave the Wild. Again, Rhino was saying, well, he hadn't expected anything out of Bradbury in years, so it's hard to be disappointed in his performance. So unfortunately, not much for comments here. Thank you, though, for the uncensored podcast there. Once again, Sam Darnold is leading the way for the biggest surprise. First place, 57.1. John Parker Romo second, 28.6. Byron Murphy Jr., 14.3. And Pat Jones is 0. That's for the biggest surprise of 2024. 2024 biggest season disappointment. It's all kind of unfortunate. Looks like there's been no votes since the last deal, and that's unfortunate. T.J. Hawkinson and Ty Chandler tying 44.4%. So I guess that's how it's going to be. I wound up deciding on T.J. Hawkinson for that. Brian Asamoah also with 11.1, and Garrett Bradbury with nothing. MVP, Van Ginkel and Justin Jefferson tied 37.5. Sam Darnold with 25%. And Jonathan Grenard didn't get a single vote, which is kind of weird. Also celebrated the 15th anniversary for Purple Mafia Show on February the 10th, apparently. So I created the Purple Mafia Show account on February the 10th, 2010. Yep, 2 years actually. The show was already 2 years old. No, yeah, it was about almost 2 years old. The show officially started in early April 2008. So yeah, but the Twitter account didn't exist until 2010. I kind of put that off for a while, and I remember thinking, why did I do that? The show that's definitely had its ups and downs. It's definitely had a lot more followers in the past. Some have disappeared for one reason or another, and that's unfortunate. People just kind of come and go. It's an ebb and flow, and that's kind of how the podcasting world can be sometimes, unless you're really lucky, like a Joe Rogan. But even he probably sees people come and go as well. The Facebook page, well, it's Purple Mafia Show, Minnesota Vikings Show. If you want to look that up on Facebook. Otherwise, there's a link in the show description. Hopefully people are checking that out. I haven't seen any new followers lately, and that's unfortunate. Again, just the post of the No Three-Peat Eagles store, but we do hear from the legendary Mark Carlson. Going back to 2012 is when he started, and really appreciate him. He says, a great episode. Who knew the game would go that way? That'd be the Super Bowl. I was sure it would be closer and the other way around. Yep, closer with the stupid Chiefs winning, right? Yep. I was kind of afraid of that happening too. Episode number 451. What a legacy of Vikings and NFL coverage. I don't think I got on board until 2012 or so. And yes, that's correct, 2012. But even 2012 is a long time ago. But it tells you how old Purple Mafia Show is because it started in 2008. It's just crazy. It's one of the oldest podcasts probably you'll ever find on the entire internet. Like, how many podcasts go back to 2008? Basically none. I'm sorry. So Mark Carlson says it goes back to about 2012 or so, and I have enjoyed it all the way through. Still waiting for the purple confetti and seriously loud skull chant or Viking horn or something. Also, I would say I am not a fan of Facebook, and so therefore far less active, and that's unfortunate, but that's how it goes. And the other media choices don't suit me either, so I'm hanging tough right here. 451 episodes. That is epic. A huge amount. More than a huge amount, actually. It's a freaking massive mountain of episodes. Congratulations on 451. Trophy to you, Joey, dude. Keep on rocking in the free world. Skol, Mark from Iowa. And thank you so much, Mark Carlson. Mark from Iowa, the legendary Mark Carlson, Purple Mafia Hall of Famer by a mile and multi-time Gold Star of the Year Award winner. Absolutely deserves it. He was the first ever Gold Star of the Year Award winner, and the most recent one, which I think was 2 years ago before the Facebook page got killed, basically. So it's like I have so many less people where these guys are already Hall of Famers and such. So that's just kind of how that goes. But Mark definitely getting a platinum star for this particular episode. Platinum diamond laced star for this episode. So thank you very much, Mark. Really love hearing from you, and it means the world to me. It really does that you like the show as much as you do, and hope we'll keep this coming for another 17 years or so, right? At least going back to 2008. I mean, that's 17 years, right? This show is 17 years old in April. It's insane. How many podcasts are 17 years old? That could be senior in high school or finishing up junior year or whatever. I suppose if you were born in April and you turned 17, you'd be a junior. Definitely a junior, not a senior. But so that'd be next year, it'd be senior year in high school. Purple Mafia was born in 2008, like a person. It's pretty crazy. Still have that dirty-looking Met Stadium, like field and all that out there. It's probably not the best picture of Met Stadium. It looks like a big mess. And you're not really seeing the field so great. Probably not. Yeah, maybe I should have picked a better picture. I might come up with something. Yeah, because it just looks like a damn mess. I might even look for something right about now. But I really appreciate all of you. It means the world to me that we're going through yet one more One more State of the Vikings. I mean, we go back to 2009. I think that year was called State of the Vikings Address or something like that. So something along those lines back in the day. And, I remember the very first one was something like that. So, man, this is all like 99% of baseball. Look at, oh, here we go. Maybe, but it's not a clear picture. God. It's blurry, like blurry creatures, right? Blurry creatures. Yes, the blurry creatures. Well, I'll come up with something better at some point. Maybe that's what happened that day. I couldn't find a dang thing that was worth putting up. Gosh, well, 90% of it's baseball. And you know what? Met Stadium was a baseball stadium. That's the whole problem. That's why it didn't work out so well for the Vikings. And then they built a football stadium, but it had a roof, and people didn't really like it that much. And, it was like a big giant tent, basically. And, well, there we are. Okay, I think I see what happened. So here's the same picture. I probably should have slid it around a little differently. Dang, but if you want to buy the picture, it's a fortune. It's incredible. Well, you probably... Maybe I shouldn't. I'm just kind of scared right now. Yeah, but I think that's if you want to actually buy it. Like, buy like a physical hard copy of it. They want $375. Oh, is that all? God, that's ridiculous. That's insane. Maybe that's what... I don't know. I better watch out. Screw it. Maybe that's why the page got deleted, because of stuff like that. It could be. So maybe I shouldn't even mess around. My apologies for being ignorant on that. Yeah, I better not even mess around. I don't want to lose the page again. But, I mean, it's just a picture for crying out loud. It's just an image. Like, geez. It's not like I'm selling anything by having a Purple Mafia, by having a Met Stadium, an image of Met Stadium in the background. That's kind of crazy. But I guess that's the world we live in. You can't do this, you can't do that. You can't do this, you can't do that. So, with all of that said, kind of like the Vikings in the playoffs. Can't do this, can't do that, right? So frustrating. But, well, I think that's about a wrap. Again, like I was talking about in the second segment, meat and potatoes off-season, looking for interior help on the offensive, defensive lines, possibly cornerbacks, all kinds of mock drafts have a lot of cornerbacks. Maybe so only one of them has the Vikings taking a running back, at least so far. But we're going to dig deeper into that. The next episode will be the free agency special as free agency begins. And hopefully we'll have some good news to talk about there. And then, of course, the next episode after that will be the draft preview. And the next episode after that will be the draft review. I really enjoy these off-season shows, and I hope you do as well. And then I tend to take a hiatus after the draft. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll, knock out a couple episodes between, post-draft and training camp. Hopefully I'll get something out, depending on how things go with the, if I'm going to do lawn service again this year or not. That's still up in the air. It just might be all done. And I kind of think my body's telling me I better cut it out. It is. My parents are telling me to do the same. It's just, you get to be your mid-40s, maybe you shouldn't do lawn service anymore. If you've been doing it for 30 years. It's a long time. So podcasting, though, you could do it until you're 99 years old or beyond. So I'm going to try my best to keep doing podcasting as long as I can, as long as my brain is okay to get in front of the microphone and talk intelligently about the Vikings, the Timberwolves, the Wild, or whatever else, the other topics that can be brought up. So with all that said, I thank every one of you from the bottom of my heart. Encourage anybody, if they could, to please put a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It's gotten a little lonely and stupid lately. There have been a good number of ratings over the years, but it's gotten really quiet the last year or so, year or two, and I don't know what happened. It's like the show just disappeared off the face of the earth when it comes to getting reviews and such. So if you could do that, please do. Please do. It'll help the algorithms for the show. I think the growth of this show has been stunted the last 2 or 3 years, probably because of maybe I'm not exactly what the mainstream wants out there. Somebody that speaks the truth rather than just kind of going with the flow. So I don't know. It is what it is, though. If you like it, great. If you don't, it's can't help you, I guess. So yeah, other options or other things. If you want to put in an audio submission, that's always a lot of fun. Wouldn't be a Purple Mafia show without an occasional audio submission at the very least. Picking up your smart device and speaking into it, say like recording what you have to say, like a phone call or like a miniature podcast, save it, and then email it to paladinolive@yahoo.com. paladinolive@yahoo.com. I would then convert it into an MP3 file thanks to cloudconvert.com, so I can put it in the editing software and produce the show properly. With that said, again, thank you again so much, and we'll be back to talk about free agency in the next episode. Until then, take care, and Skol Vikings.